What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Rasslin, and this is my review for the October 10th episode of WWE Monday Night Raw from Brooklyn, the season premiere. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Tonight's Monday Night Raw. Man, this was a very good season premiere. Shout out to Triple H and the whole WWE staff for booking Brooklyn for their season premiere. That was a very smart move because this Brooklyn crowd was into it. It was lively, it was festive, and let's face it, it's New York. That's WWE's background. Like they're gonna act like that. And man, did they come out, man. I salute the Brooklyn crowd because you guys showed up. You made it such an enjoyable show to watch. And I mean, that's the common theme that we've seen, man, pretty much since Triple H has taken over the creative, but more so recently, where it's just been a more watchable and enjoyable Raw, where things mean something. And there's not so much like, all right, this is happening, but where is it going? Of course, we could say that for a few things, a few storylines and stuff like, all right, see where it's going, but it's like, can we kind of get there already? But for the most part, man, this was a fun show. Had a few surprise returns, a new champion, and some storylines furthering in everything. But other than that, man, this was a fun show for Monday night. Kudos to WWE and Triple H. And also, how could I forget? It was the 25th anniversary of DX. That was cool. And actually, what was... you can't say it wasn't surprising, but then again, you can say it was. Of course, you had Triple H, Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, and Road Dogg. No Billy Gunn, because, let's face it, he worked for AEW. I was surprised that there wasn't no subtle... like jokingly mentioned or anything like that. I don't know, very interesting because they have joked around and alluded to things from AEW in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But maybe I missed it. I didn't catch it, but there was no mention, nothing, anything like that. More so because it was towards the end of the show and it was just like, let's do our thing. But I don't know. It was very, I say interesting in a good way because what transpired during this show and one of the surprise returns, it's a whole lot of questions there and curiosity that is going to be really interesting to discuss and divulge in, especially for the next week until next Raw, and we see what happens there. But before I get into that, let me give you guys the results. So we opened up with Johnny Gargano defeating Austin Theory. We had Rey Mysterio defeat Chad Gable. We had Candice LeRae defeat Bayley. We had Omos defeat two enhancement talents, Joey Ace and Chico. We had Seth Rollins become the new WWE United States Champion as he defeated Bobby Lashley. I'll get into that. And then in the main event, you had Matt Riddle, who defeated Sami Zayn, or Sammy Uso, as the crowd was chanting. So that is the results for tonight's WWE Monday Night Raw from Brooklyn. I noticed that they've added more matches. Usually, before Triple H took over, it was at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes they had 4, but then it was like, of course, the common theme was like rematches and everything, but kudos to Triple H. He's made it fresh. Granted, it's a process, but he's made things fresh. I like that. It's not as stagnant as it was this time last year. We're just like, let me turn on some other wrestling to watch. Like, oh my God. So it's a complete 180 from where Monday Night Raw was a year ago. Actually, going back to the beginning of the year. So that was really interesting. But we started off with a backstage segment with Triple H, Road Dogg, X-Pac, Triple H. I didn't mind the opening segment, because it was typical DX humor. There was a chicken, which they referred to as a cock. There was a few bleeps. Just their typical humor and stuff like that. It was a nice, subtle, quick, punctual humor that was just like, all right, we're here, don't make a fool, blah, blah, blah. So we get that. And then we get, we go down ringside, and of course they introduce the new commentary team, Corey Graves and Kevin Patrick. It is going to take some time to get used to Kevin Patrick. Not like the commentary team this whole night was like really like enjoyable. It's just getting used to him because it was so used to Jimmy Smith and him and his calls and everything. So it's just like, all right, kind of got to get used to this. But for the most part, man, those guys did a really good job the whole night of just pretty much selling everything that happened, where it was just like, oh, okay, like they were just commenting on what we were watching on TV, which is pretty much the simplistic aspect of being a wrestling announcer. So then we get the Bloodline coming out. They recap SmackDown where Logan Paul confronted those guys. And then Sammy and Jey Uso, that whole dynamic, and them losing. Then we get Roman Reigns. He starts talking. He shares a quote and says, the loudest one in the room is the weakest. And everyone's thinking it's Sami Zayn because Sami Zayn has been the more talkative one. And no, he calls out Jey Uso, which I thought was like really interesting. Like, oh man, like I kind of got scared because I'm like, oh man, I hope they don't rehash like when the Bloodline first started or when it was forming, acknowledge me. And it's like, oh, I hope we don't go back to that, because it was like the same story and the same actions like every week. It was like we were like you couldn't tell which episode was different because it was the same thing happening. So he looks at Jey Uso. He's like, "Are you a fool?" Funny part of this segment: Sami Zayn interrupts, and that whole crowd just starts Sami Zayn chants. Sami Zayn chants. That guy is super over. I'm trying to think of a wrestler that organically got over in an angle that unintentionally wasn't supposed to get over, but got over. I mean, you could say Mankind or Mick Foley. So he does have similar, like you can draw a parallel between Sami Zayn and Mick Foley's comedy. It's just freaking hilarious. He interrupts. You start hearing the crowd say, Usi, Usi, Usi. It's like, what? Like, it was just so funny. Then you get Riddle interrupting, and he challenges Roman. Roman's like, you know what? Get in the back of the line. Know your place. Nah, it ain't happening no more. And then he challenges Sami Zayn. So we get Matt Riddle and Sami Zayn in the main event for Raw. So right off the bat, we get the main event, and we know what it is. So it's like, all right, we get Sami and Matt Riddle. It's like, all right, cool. And what I like about what Triple H has been doing with Raw is that it, like, right off the bat, you more so know what the main event is. And then once you know that, then it's just like this really fluid and interesting pacing to the main event. And of course, it helped the last several weeks with the QR codes, where it just added an extra element to, watch, because you're just like, okay, what's this? What's this? I believe there was another QR code that flashed. I don't know if was or a link. I don't know. I seen it online. I got to check it out. Comment below what it was that could have been a QR code or something like that. I know Bray had a promo, and they advertised him potentially for this Friday SmackDown. So we'll see how that goes. But we had a recap of Extreme Rules, basically recapping everything. Then we had Austin Theory versus Johnny Gargano. And this match, man, it wasn't bad. I think it was more so because we've seen these two guys. Well, for me, it came across because I remember watching their matches in NXT and everything, but it just felt like, okay, I've seen them in NXT, so I've seen these two face each other, so I kind of am am accustomed to what their styles and what their, you know, what's I can anticipate what's gonna happen. So for me, it wasn't so much I wasn't invested into it. It was just like, okay, I know. It's like, all right, I know more or less what's gonna, how it is, and it was a very simplistic match. Nothing to take away from the guys, but it was just very simplistic, and somewhat kind of quick, because Johnny Gargano wound up doing a diving outside DDT, which was crazy because he dove and he did a DDT, came back in the ring, and then he did a jumping DDT from the apron on Gargano and pinned him, and that was basically it. There wasn't nothing post match or anything like that, because of course Theory is still the Money in the Bank briefcase holder. So it was like there's nothing playing into that. Nothing. It just had the match and it just moved along, which I thought was really interesting. I'm like, man, it's like, all right, maybe they're saving it for next week or something like that. It's like, all right. Then we had Rey Mysterio versus Chad Gable. Of course, they referenced the whole Judgment Day and everything that happened at Extreme Rules with Edge and Finn Balor. So this Gable Mysterio match, again, this was similar to the Theory Gargano match, where it was just, a contest. That's what better term for it. It was a contest that, these guys were, doing their thing, and it's like, okay, and get involved. And it was crazy because Rey Mysterio wound up winning with like a splash, which was ironic. It was similar. He jumped over the apron on the top turnbuckle, splash, pin, Gable 1, 2, 3. It was similar finishes to the first match, and it's like, all right. But of course, he's celebrating. Music hits. This is where things get interesting. So, post match, Dominic comes to the ring with Rhea Ripley, and Ray tries to leave, and Rhea Ripley stops him, and you see Balor and Priest there surrounding the ring. And then Dominic, he hits Ray. Then Ray just fights off all the other members of Judgment Day. He still doesn't touch Dominic. Still doesn't touch him. Then Dominic stops Ray, and he's like, hey, hit me, hit me, hit me. Then Balor hits him. Then Dominic winds up doing the 619. Then you hear, you suck chance, you suck chance. Dominic still keeps, hey, hit me, hit me, hit me. He doesn't do it. Then you see Rhea Ripley, while this is going on, you see her with like a memorial band for Beth Phoenix, which was pretty interesting. And then after this, they cut a promo, Judgment Day. And I think for me, the big question, like as a group, I'm fine with this. Like, all right, they're Judgment Day, they're doing this, but it just seems like they've been feuding with Edge since May. I think it's been May. Yeah, since May that they've been feuding with Edge. So it's just like, okay. Granted, I love long-term storytelling, but in this case, it's because it was so convoluted the way it was, and Edge was a leader for a month, and then he got kicked out for no apparent. Like, it was just the way that whole thing started, just really interesting. So I could see Triple H and WWE, trying to correct and steer this into something meaningful, which they are putting the effort in, but it's just like, man, okay, where's this going? Where's the Dominic Rey Mysterio storyline going? Of course, the typical answer is like, okay, this is going to lead to eventually Rey Mysterio and Dominic wrestling at Royal Rumble and probably a return match at WrestleMania. It's like, okay, that's, you can see that, but it's just like, that may be where they want to go, but does the feud have the arms and legs, and by arms and legs, I mean, the interest of the fan base? Does it have the aggression, the tenacity, the the viciousness of a heated storyline? Does it have all those elements and ingredients for a storyline to go from October to late March, early April? Does it have that, all that stuff to, carry it through there? And it's like, people are already just like, okay, can we end this? So maybe Survivor Series this ends. So, but Judgment Day comes out, they're still in the ring with the promo, and Rhea Ripley mentions, hey, we won Monday Night Raw. Balor mentions, when you come at me, you better make sure you don't miss. Then somebody must have been listening to MC Hammer, because he busts out an MC Hammer song, a title of a song, I'm Too Legit to Quit. I'm like, they had to be excuse me, they had to be listening to MC Hammer, because that was the most random reference, and saying, most people don't even say that. So I'm like, they had to be listening to an MC Hammer, it's an MC Hammer song. Then there was a recap that they asked to play of the Edge match. And by this time, they're already you had Rey Mysterio, you had the post-match brawl with Rey Mysterio, which is about 3 to 5 minutes. This promo's already 3 minutes. So you've had them out for at least 8-9 minutes already. So then, again, he's calling out AJ Styles. He's like, you need to join us. And then AJ's music hits. He comes to the ring, and he's like, you know what? I've made my decision to join my brothers. And he drops down. He gives Balor a hug. And then he mentioned, while this is going on, how do I put this? So WWE, in the last month with Triple H, I'm going to give you guys a tip. Pay attention to key words. They really like to emphasize key words for people that may be returning. They did it with Bray Wyatt as far as the Rabbit, which was a part of his Firefly Funhouse. I believe they did some subtle mention of reference to Strowman, not directly, but more indirectly. There you go. WWE does a lot of indirect references to people that may be potentially joining. So in this case, AJ Styles, he mentioned, join my brothers. And it's like, there's a story that broke that the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, are headed back to WWE. This was broken early in the morning. So here's another thing. When you hear that someone is possibly headed to WWE, they eventually sold it. It happened to Strowman. It happened to Karrion Kross. It's happened to basically most of these recent returns in WWE. And he mentions that, and all of a sudden music hits. You see Gallows and Anderson coming out to the ring. All of a sudden you got a brawl. They're breaking out. Styles and Balor face to face. Balor runs from the Good Brothers, and AJ Styles, they do the Too Sweet sign. So yes, the Good Brothers are in WWE. They return, but here's where things get interesting. So as of right now, as of this recording, on Monday, October 10th, Carl Anderson is still the New Japan Pro Wrestling Never Openweight Champion. He is still their champion. He has not lost it or nothing. Also, when this segment happened, you had Jay White. Yes, Jay White from New Japan Pro Wrestling, the IWGP World Champion. He tweeted, the catalyst of pro wrestling, hashtag Bullet Club, hashtag Good Brothers, hashtag WWE Raw. Things are getting interesting. Very interesting. And I know most of you who watch it are like, oh, New Japan's working with WWE and they're forgetting about AEW. Nope. AEW and New Japan still have a working relationship. What could possibly be the case is that there is some minor agreement between New Japan and WWE as far as Carl Anderson. I know there was a promo that he mentioned, I'm going to defend this Never Openweight Championship on New Japan, Impact Wrestling, AEW, and he mentions WWE, and this is a backstage promo in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I believe I tweeted on the House of Wrestling. You can find it on the House of Wrestling Twitter account. And yeah, follow the House of Wrestling on Twitter. So this makes everything interesting. Like, Carl Anderson is still the New Japan Pro Wrestling never openweight champion. He cuts this promo that he's going to challenge, defend the belt on Impact, AEW, and WWE. He's aligned himself with AJ Styles. So a lot of curiosity and intrigue with this. And I like this because this doesn't, for me, there may be people that might stretch this and, oh, AEW, they're not working with. No, that is not the case. I want to clarify that. AEW and WWE, or AEW and New Japan, still have a working relationship. And what could be happening is that there's possibly some, minor, small agreement between New Japan and WWE as far as Carl Anderson being the champion. I like it. It adds intrigue. I think with all this crazy stuff going on in AEW and with Triple H and this stuff going on, and it was announced that new AEW is has a working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah. I think as a wrestling fan, and I strongly advise you guys as wrestling fans who are going to watch this, 2023, I honestly believe that nothing is off the table. And I do think something that we would never expect is probably going to happen in pro wrestling. Could it be New Japan, AEW, and WWE do an event? Never say never. That could be the thing. And I know you're like, well, Tony Khan said this. Well, guess what? You have 2 billionaires and you have a major company in New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was founded on Antonio Inoki, and they're going to honor him at Wrestle Kingdom. So nothing is off the table. Trust me. Everything that's happening, we've seen crazy things. Cody Rhodes went back to WWE. Vince McMahon stepped down. Nothing is off the table in wrestling. And that's what I think what we're headed towards going into 2023, that nothing is off the table. And this is going to be interesting. So yeah, Carl Anderson is still the New Japan Pro Wrestling never openweight champion. We'll see how long he holds that title or what have you. This is fun. This is fun. I like it. It's refreshing. Let's keep it going. So we get a backstage segment of Damage Control. They're hyping up their match where Bayley is facing Candice LeRae. So they're hyping it up. Then we got a backstage segment with Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. They're outside their SUV, and Roman's telling Jey Uso's like, hey, make sure Sammy doesn't lose. You're taking me and Solo. We're in New York. We're gonna run the town. Thought it was cool. It was typical because Roman he's done that before. And you could see Jey Uso was just heated. So they're still playing on Jey Uso as a hothead. Then you get Bayley versus Candice LeRae. And by this point, like, with this match, this was a pretty decent match. But it had this similar pacing and feel as the first two matches, where it was just very, make it a contest and competitive, but not go too deep into your arsenal and moveset and everything. It was just, let's do this to advance the storyline. So yeah, Candice, she was favoring her left knee because Bayley was working on it. She was working that knee. Like, she put Candice LeRae on the top rope and she knocked her off and just kept on kicking the left knee. Then a crazy roll-up that Candice LeRae was able to execute. She pinned Bayley 1, 2, 3, and that was it. That was the match. So it really, just a really kind of borderline weird, because it was like, that was like rolling, like, all right, like, it is what it is. Then after the match, you had Io Sky and Dakota Kai. They came and attacked Candice LeRae. Bianca Belair came out. They attacked Bianca Belair. Bayley kept on working on Candice LeRae's knee. There was boos. Bayley executed a elbow drop on the back of Bianca Belair, and she basically says this is what a real tramp looks like. So again, this was a match to further the storyline of Bianca Belair and Damage Control, which now it looks like we're gonna get Candice LeRae joining Bianca Belair, which should be cool. Then we get another backstage segment of The Miz and Maurice, and they're hyping up the birthday celebration. But then this is where they come back from break and they go to the birthday celebration between The Miz and Maurice. And again, this was another quick segment. And by quick, I will say this. Looking at this, it was quick, but the one thing that Triple H has done with this pacing of Monday Night Raw is that he's made things, matches, promos, backstage segment, he's made it quick, but yet he's been very punctual with it. Like, we're going to get to the point. We're not going to drag this out. Like, no, we're going to get to the point and move on. Kudos to them. So he mentions Jose Ramirez signed his bet. Cleveland Indians. Mind you, they're in New York, so he's just ragging on. He's like, Aaron Judge, isn't a superstar. And then Maurice is like, oh, Kevin Durant, and that whole thing, which once he said that, like, there was no, like, reaction. It was just like, all right. Then she shows, takes this, the apron off or cover off, and it's like two giant like yoga balls with his face. It's like, Miz got big balls. It's like, again, this whole segment has no reaction up until this point. Then he grabs the box. He's like, man, this is pretty heavy. So he picks it up and he's like, man, what's going on here? And it's Dexter Lumis with his head kind of like, out of the table, and he's just looking and everything. And he turns around and Miz, tries hitting it and flips over the table. Dexter Lumis is gone. He comes back in the ring, puts Miz in a sleeper. Maurice, he throws her into a cake. Miz runs off. They run off, and Dexter Lumis just stabs the yoga balls, and that was it. Like, again, this is another angle or segment that just furthered along the storyline. Like, all right, cool. And then we get a backstage segment with DX with two wrestlers, Joey Ace and Chico. They're giving a pep talk as far as those guys facing Omos. The Miz, he's complaining to Road Dogg, X-Pac, and Shawn Michaels. I did like when X-Pac looked at Maurice because she had cake on her face, like, hey, can I get a piece of some cake or something like that? And I was like, that's actually pretty funny. So Road Dogg schedules a match, which commentary brought up, like, can he actually schedule a match or what have you? And next week, we're going to get The Miz versus Dexter Lumis. And if Dexter Lumis wins, he gets a contract, a WWE contract. And if The Miz wins, Dexter Lumis is gone. So that is the stipulation, which kind of know where this is going. Like, it's going to be Dexter Lumis signing a contract. I don't think WWE's going to go with, no, he's got to go away. No. Then we get Omos versus Joey Ace and Chico. This was just a squash match. Like, he beat them up quickly. There was no post-match, interference or tease that he's going to wrestle someone. He just beat them down even more. That was it. Then we get a recap of Bray Wyatt's return, and they show the full return, the full entrance and everything. And for me, it wasn't so much, oh man, like part of me was just like, all right, man, we've seen this already. But then after like not even 2 minutes, I'm just like, this is still a badass entrance. Like, this was a badass return from Bray Wyatt. So then we get Lashley versus Rollins. So Lashley comes to the ring and he's mentioning, I've beaten everyone, I've beaten the best, and he's calling people out. I'm going to beat Seth Rollins. And all of a sudden, music hits and Brock Lesnar. Yes, Brock Lesnar shows up on Monday Night Raw, goes to the ring. He's like, hey, Lashley. And he F5s Bobby Lashley, belly to back suplexes him, and then puts him in the Kimura lock. So that happens. They go to commercial break. During the commercial break, you had the refs. They were checking on him and everything. Seth Rollins comes out. He's bandaged up. He's like, no, start the match. Lashley gets in. He's like, start the match. So Lashley runs, and he runs directly into a pedigree. Seth pins him, breaks out, and I'm like, oh, man, okay. How's this going to play out? I'm like, I know once Lesnar messed up Bobby Lashley, I already know. I'm like, Seth Rollins is going to be the new champ. Like, I was like, no, Seth Rollins is going to be the new champ. They're not going to have Lashley overcome. Like, no, Seth Rollins is going to be the new champ. And it's going to set up the storyline between Lashley and Brock Lesnar. So they'll have a match at Crown Jewel next month. Guarantee you, it's going to be Brock Lesnar, Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley at Crown Jewel. So I'm like, that's what's going to happen. So he runs into a pedigree. Then Seth Rollins does a frog splash. He kicks out. Then he gets after that, he spears Seth Rollins. Then he tries to put the Hurt Lock down. Mind you, Lesnar messed up his shoulder, so he couldn't fully through it. Seth Rollins, he super kicks Lashley. Then he's able to do the curb stomp. Then he runs the rope, and he's doing the song, and the crowd is cheering, oh, and they're singing, and then he executes another stomp. 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins wins. He is the new United States champion. And what I got out of this, and it was loud and clear, WWE needs to turn Seth Rollins' face. The crowd reaction, the crowd was loving it. He was relishing it with the crowd, and they were into it. It's like you have a organic baby face that the crowd is behind. I really want to know when or if they do have that in mind to turn him face, because I mean, he's quite possibly getting the loudest crowd reactions, close to Roman Reigns. Not as much, but he's like up there. Like, those two are pretty much the loudest crowd reactions that are happening, as far as just crowd intrigue and stuff like that. So then we come back from commercial, and Lashley, he challenges Brock Lesnar next week. He's like, I'm going to beat his ass. He ain't nothing but a bitch. It's like, ooh, this is going to be good. And of course, people have been wanting this since Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber, when technically Bobby Lashley didn't lose. He left out of the match because he was injured. So it's interesting. Then we get another video of Bray Wyatt, and he basically mentions Revel and What You Are. That's just to summarize everything, because it was distorted video and everything. So Bray Wyatt's back with his creepy, cryptic messaging. Then in the main event, you got Riddle versus Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn comes out, and then guess what? Elias is returning next week. Yes, Elias, not Ezekiel, but Elias with the guitar and everything. That should be fun. We get Jey Uso as a match happened. He tried to he kicked Matt Riddle in the head, and Jey Uso, him and Sami are still going at it. Sami Zayn is like, hey, I got it. I don't need your help. And later on in the match, it winds up happening where Matt Riddle's outside and the Usos could beat him up. And you could see Jey Uso wanting to do something to Matt Riddle, like rough him up. And you see Jey Uso hold him back. He's like, no. He said he got it. And it's like, oh, man, they're really going into this. So you had that. Then Sammy executed a Mikinoshi driver. There was a bunch of Sammy Uso chants. Then Sammy prevents Jey Uso getting involved. He's like, no, I got this. Then it led to Matt Riddle executing an RKO. Pins him. 1, 2, 3. Riddle wins. The Usos and Sami Zayn are bickering, fighting. So again, that's interesting because where is that going to go as far as the bloodline and Roman Reigns and how he's going to react on SmackDown and stuff like that. So that just furthers that storyline as far as Sami Zayn being the honorary use and Jey Uso being upset that he's the honorary use and being a hothead. So that's pretty interesting dynamic because you got Jimmy that's, laughing and joking with Sami Zayn. You got Solo that's just cool and just, reserved. And you got Roman being Roman. So it's just an interesting storyline with many interesting dynamics. Then we get DX celebrating. Like I said, there was no mention of Billy Gunn, no indirect message or joke or anything. It just, they got to the point. It's funny, Shawn Michaels was like, yeah, if you're around in the next 25 years and we're still celebrating, put us out of our misery. And I'm freaking Shawn Michaels is hilarious. Man, shout out to X-Pac. He gave a shout out to the late great Chyna. That was so cool because she was such an influential part and vital member of DX and them being super over when it first started. And that was it. That was the end of the show. That was the October 10th episode of WWE Monday Night Raw, the season premiere from Brooklyn. Man, there's so many interesting things. But that Carl Anderson being the never open weight champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's with WWE. New Japan still working with AEW. Man, a lot of good stuff, a lot of intrigue, interest, curiosity, of course, with the Bray Wyatt stuff. That's even heightened now. This is refreshing for the world of professional wrestling. Hopefully, this show just sparks it ignites a fire in the other promotions to step their fucking game up and just put out the best product that they can and that they want to put out and make it make sense for the fans so we can enjoy it. Because, man, mind you, this was just WWE on Monday. Man, if AEW this Wednesday, when their back's against the wall, hopefully this is it, where they, by it, is just, it reignite, like, let's go, put some stuff together. Impact Wrestling, of course, New Japan, because they unveiled the New Japan World TV title earlier today. MLW is coming back, like NWA, GCW, like, let's get this thing going. And that's why I said in this video earlier, like, 2023, like, I strongly believe, expect the unexpected. And I don't think anything's off the table. And just by WWE and Triple H and those guys in the DX segment not referencing Billy Gunn at all, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive because of all the reports as far as tampering and stuff like that. So I do see something like, hey, you know what? Let's just be cordial and just, we're here. We're the ones that are here and celebrating, and they know that he was a part of it, and it's not us being spiteful or things. That's how I took it. I didn't take it like, oh, they can't. No, that's how I took it, and we'll see where this goes. I can't wait to see SmackDown and what Bray's going to do and that stuff. So I'm just excited about wrestling in general. Like, want to see what happens on NXT tomorrow, and then I want to see what's happening on Dynamite and Impact Wrestling, and just what's going to happen, man. This is fun, man. Just enjoy it, man. So that is my review for the October 10th episode of WWE Monday Night Raw, the season premiere from Brooklyn. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I'm out.